Hey, so today I guess it's the day that I break my social media silence. So, as most people know, if there's social media silence for any length of time, it's usually because of a divorce. Um, for the record, not all divorces are made equally or created equally. In my case, there was a domestic violence arrest in August of 2021, and then a subsequent disclosure from my daughter of sexual abuse. All the while, I stayed in that power and control relationship thinking I was keeping my kids safe. So, this is my public service announcement, if you will. PSA: do not stay because you think for 1 second that it's keeping your kids safe. All it's doing is teaching them that you agree this is where you should be, no matter how bad it gets. And so instead of being able to be the healthy one and teach them what trauma work looks like and all of those things, instead, you're just continuing to be in fight or flight, to be in terror, and also for them to be getting hurt in it all without you even realizing it. And probably you're getting tied into it somehow by bringing a chocolate or bringing some gift you didn't even know existed that was conditioning them to say it was okay to do the things. While that is a really, really painful truth, definitely part of my story. Breathing sometimes is the hardest part. It's the piece where you sit with pieces of you and past you, and that she was doing the best she could possibly do at the time. Sometimes I feel really bad for past me. I used to be really mean to her, but the truth is, she was conditioned, like most of us, to live in fear and to be afraid and to be okay with complacency and pointing to all the things that are, quote, the dream, right? The nice house, the cars, the vacations, the ability to have disposable income, the kids, the dogs, the whatever, right? Anyway, I don't want to dive too deep into that, but what I can say is this, is that when I realized that I had joined that unspeakable club, there were two things that I did. One, and it was something I already knew, and I don't know why I knew it, probably because I know enough people and I was a psychology major and we had to look things up, but is that the number one thing you're supposed to do when your child discloses to you is believe them. Guess what? There isn't a human being on this planet that could convince me that my daughter is lying, because a 3-year-old doesn't have sexualized behaviors without someone showing them, especially the ones that I witnessed. And also, I have wanted to be a parent as long as I can remember. I couldn't wait to be a mom. It took me a long time to get there, and my gosh, what a crazy ride that was. Pregnant with what seemed to be a gazillion, and miscarrying most, and then going to make sure that my uterus was okay and there wasn't anything crazy there, turned into a heartbeat and a tiny human. What a crazy ride it was. It was a crazy couple days. And also, honestly, it was kind of her personality. She wasn't going to share anything with anyone. She is independent and fierce and knows exactly what she wants. And the first year after everything hit the fan, we'll call it, because that's the easiest way, I kind of buried my head and tried to just get through it and tried to figure it out, and I didn't know. And I think we had some therapy going, and then that turned into a mess, and we ended up in March of, well, it was early February of 2023 was when my life really significantly changed. Not that, I mean, like, let's be real. I just told you domestic violence and disclosure of sexual abuse by my tiny human. And now I'm telling you March of 2023 was when my life really changed. In truth, that's when it totally changed. The year and a bit before that, I had spent trying to just keep my job. I was in fear mode. I was just pedaling away, keep my job, keep the kids alive, keep the house going, mowing the grass, doing all the things, trying not to let any balls drop, trying not to let anyone in, trying not to mess up, trying not to whatever. Ironically, in all of that time, all those friends that I supposedly had, crickets. One person reached out. She was delightful. At the time, I was in such terror. I know why we didn't talk much after that, because I was just off the chain, scared to death. Anyway, flash forward. It's February. I'm at work. I get a phone call and I get told, Katie, we can't do this anymore. We can't do it anymore. Like, you're going to have to find another place for childcare for VPK starting March 1st. It was less than a week. And I was like, there's no place to go now. Like, it's March in like a whole school year. Like, there's like a few months left. There's nowhere to go. There's no daycare. There's no whatever. Like, where am I gonna? And they were like, we know, we get it. Like, and also, we gave you a year and it hasn't really changed. It's gotten worse. And I remember losing my whole mind and being in terror some more. And then going to my boss and being like, what do I do? And she was this lovely woman with a child of a similar age. And she scooped me up and she was like, you're going to go on FMLA and you're going to figure it out. This is what you're going to do. And I remember being terrified and not understanding what I was going to do and freaking out and whatever. Because, well, terror. Like, when you live in fear and fight or flight mode, there is nothing other than terror and fear. And newsflash, physiologically, the higher level thinking lives here. When you're in fight or flight, your blood lives here. Guess what that means? There's no higher level thinking. It's legit a mess because you are just surviving. And I remember when I had to tell my tiny human it was the last day she was gonna, and I told her the day before, so she'd know. She lost her whole mind. She was like, it's not my fault. It's this other human's fault. And I was like, I hear you. What I promise you is that we will figure this out. That is the day. The day I held that little in my arms and I said, we will figure this out together. So she went and she had an epic day with her friends and she said goodbye. And then we went home. And for a while, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I'm trying to call and I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm like, what are resources that I know? What are resources I don't know? Who are people that might have resources? So I spiral through all the people that I can think of that I might know. I mean, Facebook's got to be worth something, right? There got to be somebody in there that I can reach out to that has some indicator or some recommendation. So I did. I've talked to a few people, and I remembered that there were trainings and different things, and so I took TBRI training, and I'm pretty sure it's trust-based relationship intervention. You'll have to Google it if you really want to know the full name. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And so I was sitting for like 4 weeks, maybe more, on Zoom with my tiny human in the house interrupting every 5 seconds. And also, I took it and I asked all my questions. Because it's a trauma-informed training. So it's, it helps educators and really anyone who has to manage, I don't want to say deal with because that's gross, manage children that have hard things, whether it be emotional or pick a thing, really. It could be from trauma, it could be biological, it could be any of the things that can cause your brain to work in a way that doesn't make sense. And the truth is, it can even work for kids who are, quote, and I say quote because it's like normal feels like such a spectrum. But anyway, haven't had any obvious traumas or obvious neurodivergence. And so it like taught me these great strategies, which I implemented immediately because I needed them. And then I had heard about a couple of people in town who were fantastic for different reasons. And for whatever reason, my son's best friend was a therapist and had people that she could recommend that were lovely. And so I dug around in those people and tried to find the best options. And when I tell you that I chose the best options for my kids, not for winning my case, not for going to court and defending whatever or saying whatever, the best choices I could make for them so that they could move forward and they could live their life confident and emotionally intelligent. And I mean, and I need to give you, this will give you an example of what I mean by emotionally intelligent. My 3-year-old yelled at his, and by yelled at, like he was like, I am so angry with you, to one of his preschool teachers because he was talking to her and she was looking at some paper and not paying attention to him. And he was like, I am angry with you because you are not paying attention. And she was like, oh, snap. I'm not. And she set the paper down and she called him by name and said, I am now paying attention. Can you please ask me your question? And so he did. And they had their great conversation and then everything was okay. And she was like, Katie, I have never in my life been called out by a 3-year-old. And I was like, well, we're doing hard work over here. Hard work. And so during all of that, right? So I'm sure even before that, there was, there hadn't been contact with the other parent in a while. The truth is, there was a domestic violence injunction that kept some space. Because there were open DCF cases, not only by me. Like one was open because of the arrest, one was open because of a school report. So and anyway, so there kept some space from her. And then there was a choice by their side to ask me to not renew my domestic violence injunction, but to sign a stipulation. And the stipulation traded the domestic violence injunction so that wouldn't be on the books, right? For no physical contact with the kids. As a victim who had their child disclosed to them, I snapped that thing up so quickly, my head like almost spun. And I signed it because I was like, absolutely. I'm like, I will trade one for the other. And I'm sure that those of you who have been through this and know more of the legal side of it will be like, you crazy lady. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to tell you that no contact for me got barged through like none other. But you know who's didn't? Those tiny humans. And so while I know the consequences, because the domestic violence injunction going away, do you know what that means? It means that there is no longer reason for the police department to hold firearms that belong to the person who was arrested for domestic violence. So I know I could have been picked off on my way to work. And also, if it meant keeping my kids safe, that's what I was going to do. So with all of that in mind, I'm still plugging forward. So I take my kids to all the therapies that I can possibly. And I know that it is August of 2023, my tiny human who just got kicked out of school has to go to kindergarten. We cannot get kicked out of school. We have to be educated. I have a PhD. I'm not going to let my kid not be educated. Do I think that kindergarten is make or break? We're never going to survive if we don't make it through kindergarten? No. There are things that I could have done to help with that if it had come down to it. I could have homeschooled kindergarten, and I could probably still do it. I don't want to. The thing is, I wanted my kid to be able to have a fresh start, and that's what I told her. Look, girl, this is your opportunity. We've done hard work all summer, and we can do this. Together, we're going to do this. I wasn't going to school with her. There is nothing, I don't know why I said we, other than I wanted her to feel like we were in it together. Because, I couldn't make her do what she needed to do. I couldn't make her not get upset. I couldn't make her whatever. all I got to do was to walk her to school and give her a hug every day before I left and be like, baby, I love you. Have an awesome day. And then when she came out, and let me tell you about some color charts. I hate a color chart. I know that they work for some, and also they feel horrible because it's like you have the kids that are like perfectly purple and pink, and then you have the kids that are consistently like orange and red, and then you have the kids that are consistently just green. Like they just show up and they make some good choices, some sad choices, some good choices, so they just hang out around green. The ghost kids maybe have some hope to get to purple or pink, but not enough to get treasure box, and so they're just envious. And really, you just teach them learned hopelessness when they're the orange and red kids, because pink seems so far out of anything that they could even get to in a rocket ship, spaceship, whatever, that it just feels heinous. So anyway, long story short, kid is in kindergarten, rocking it, like always in like, blue, purple, green, like really doing great. Pink a lot of the time. You would have thought somebody knocked her ice cream cone on the floor. She said, Mom, I got yellow. I'm like, so? Right? In my mind, I'm like, what's it? And she was like, I got yellow. I'm so sorry. And I was like, baby, Mommy's not going to be sad about a couple yellow days every once in a while. She's like, really? Absolutely, babe. Like, Mom has red days. But guess what? I don't have a color chart. Nobody is calling my mommy if I don't get on pink or if I get on red. I was like, it'd be kind of hard. My mom passed away, but like that isn't happening. Let me tell you, flash forward, it is now 2026. Don't you know that kid still remembers that yellow day? And I'm like, babe, that's normal. People have yellow days. Anyway, so I say all that to tell you that, like, in October of that year, I roll in, like, teacher's like, hey, do you want to have a parent-teacher conference? I'm like, sure. I roll up. She gets out this huge binder. She, like, drops it on the desk. And she flips it open to her page. And she's showing me that she was super shy, so she didn't know any of her sounds because she literally just stared at her instead of answering any of her questions. To where she was at that point, where she knew, like, I don't know, it was like 24 of the 26 sounds or something. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, this is great. This is great. And also, like, I know, like, you think I care about this because I have a PhD, but honestly, I do care. Don't get me wrong. I don't want my kid to not be excelling in academics. And also, like, how's she doing socially? Like, emotionally? Like, how's that going? This woman looks at me like I have 17 heads. I'm like, she's like, she's doing fantastic. Like, what do you mean? My baby was doing fantastic. And I looked at her and I was like, I'm so glad. She was like, why do you ask? She's like a joy to have in class. I wish I had 20 of her. She's fantastic. And I was like, well, in March, we got kicked out of preschool. And she was like, for what? Can I ask? Like, she like all of a sudden realized what she was saying. And I told her, and she was like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, no. Here's the thing about the system, though, right? Is that the system does things based on how your kids behave. So a human can do something heinous to them and make them really upset, and they get kicked out of school, and somehow, like, it doesn't matter. Like, their consequences don't matter for them. Like, oops, I'm dropping my phone. But so, like, we did this together. We worked it out, and she was excelling and doing fantastic. And we kept on that path. We stayed going to sensory integration therapy, so occupational therapy, but with a focus on sensory integration. And we were going to a different, like, play therapist that does EMDR for kids. And we were doing things for everyone to move forward. And I didn't just stop with her. I put the other one in too, because, well, I know that trauma trickles, right? So there's a lot of different things that were happening and a lot of really hard stuff. But she made it. And then, like, she didn't just make it. Like, it was March the next year and she was still rocking it. It was a year later and we had completely flipped the script. I remember looking at my therapist. She was also new. Like, I got a new one of those, like, over the summer, because I had one that had lost her whole mind. And I definitely told her if she didn't have anything nice to say, she shouldn't say it, because she said some really heinous things about her beliefs of children with sexual abuse backgrounds. And it was based on her own hard stuff. And also, not you shouldn't be doing that kind of trauma therapy if you haven't managed your own. It just isn't kind. That's one of the things that I know, like, this is why I want to do this, because I don't want people to feel alone in it. People are heinously mean. They feel like either you were a victim, so you're always a victim, so they can gaslight you and treat you terribly and say really harsh things, and you're supposed to just take it. And it still triggers all of your old wounds. And so when you flash out in anger, then you're the problem. And the truth is, like, you wouldn't treat anyone the way that people treat victims. It's really interesting. And just because you were a victim doesn't mean you identify as a victim, and doesn't mean that you will be a victim in the future if you do the right things and by do the right things, I mean, like, make safe choices for your body to move you forward. And so, like, it's really complicated. And also, I look at it and it was really hard. It was really lonely. Being a domestic violence victim is really lonely. Once there's a tiny human that discloses sexual abuse, it becomes even lonelier, because people can't hear it. And they definitely can't hear it if it was another woman. They want to make it about the husband or the man you were married to. And there is, like, people just can't hear it. And I say this, like, not lighthearted, because by no stretch of the imagination is it. But I know I recently had a friend that told me that that was part of her story, that she had been sexually abused by her mother. And people will be like, can we get some women to work in the nursery at church? And she's like walking by, like, putting her hand on the shoulder, like, it doesn't have to be a man for there to be abuse happening. Like, I just need you to remember, and people can't hear it. People don't want to hear it. That's the truth. It is by far and away the most challenging piece of it, is like, I didn't want to believe it. I married the human. Like, like, of course, I didn't want to believe it. Only it's when your tiny human is grooming you to do things to their body, you become acutely aware that it's possible. But you know what happens? You get blamed. So school's over there telling all your kids, well, you tell safe people. If someone does something that's unsafe for your body, or tells you not to tell the secret or whatever, tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your safe people. Only newsflash, I need you to tell your tiny humans, if you're not someone, tell the other parent, tell anyone else, really. Because the truth is, that's the easiest defense of all time. These are, like, statistically, white men are usually the abusers based on statistics. I'm not saying that's true or not, because obviously in my case that's not true. But those same laws are written by white men with a lot of money and influence. It's why, unless it gets to epic proportions, like, Penn State or something, then nothing happens. Because people can buy their way out of it, NDA themselves out of it, and then no harm, no foul. We have to find a different way. And also, I'm not here for all of that right now. What I'm saying is, like, there are ways to get out of fear and to help your kids. You can control the things that you can control. So, like, I can't control what the court does with my kids. So I can tell you there are 4 years, almost 4 years, that my children were not in contact with their other parent. They spent their time finding people who were going to say no matter what that they were reunified, that whatever. Like, let's be real. When a therapist spends one time meeting your kid and then never meets with them really alone again to get to know them, and then only meets with them with their person that's a stranger, how would they ever know the difference between their, like, your child with a stranger or your child with a stranger? They wouldn't, right? The behavior would always be the same. So the comparison is that there's no behavior change. But the safe person that has them at home every night, and the other 87,000 hours of the year, whatever it is. I mean, I don't really know how many hours. I haven't done the calculation. Gets all the consequences. And so what I've done is, instead of being upset about things that I can't control, I can't control if people tell the truth. I can't control if people do the right thing. I can't control if someone is a coward and doesn't show up for my kid. What I can do is I can show up for my kid. I get to scoop them up every time they are upset. I get to encourage them to use their words and their voice. I get to be that person who supports them and reminds them of how unique they are and how amazing they are. I get to be that person because we have built years of trust. We have fought through the trenches of hell to get to where we are. So there's no amount of timeshare or derogatory stuff that you can say about me that's going to change their mind, because we have built something that has taken time and effort, and I never thought I'd be able to build it back. I never thought I'd be able to build it back, and here we are. My kid, when she doesn't understand or she doesn't, like, right? I mean, my favorite thing is, like, some, like, it's already happened where their commentary that's going on where it's like, well, I was told that they pay everything. And I'm like, well, I mean, if I was like, first of all, that's so far above anything that you need to be worried about. If they have anything they want to talk to me about, they can. I'm like, because that's an adult conversation. That's not something for you. And also, newsflash, that's not true. It's just not. So I'm like, anything you have, if you want to ask a question, I'm happy to answer it. When you're a little older, I'll show you the spreadsheet. And also, we're not gonna weaponize children by telling them about financial information that they're not even getting the full knowledge about. They're just getting pieces, so it seems sketchy. You can try and turn my kids on me. That isn't it. I get to show up for them in a way that at some point they're going to know you gave 4 years away on purpose. While I sacrificed possible job consequences because I went on FMLA to keep the job or whatever, I don't even know what the real reason is, but the DV injunction off of the record gave away your kids for 4 years. I'm grateful for that. That's a gift that at the time I didn't even understand what I was given. Now I do. Now I understand. So what I can say about it is that there was this point where I started seeing this woman, she does body work, because I was trying to figure out how to, right, there's Your Body Keeps Score, there's that book that is lovely, and also it's true, your body keeps all the stuff you don't express in it. So I started seeing this woman, and she has this lovely Buddha print on her bathroom wall, and it says, inner peace begins the moment you choose not to allow another person or event to control your emotions. And I remember being like, gosh, what an amazing goal. Here's the deal. It's still an ongoing goal. Every single day I have to remind myself that I get to choose. And also, no matter what happens, I know that I get to show up for them in a way that no one else does. I know the truth, they know the truth. The truth is, you can tell somebody that you love them a million times. But when they know you've lied to them, they don't believe it. So there's this hard line between pretending that everything is okay and trying to justify how you've really been there the whole time when you haven't, and actually getting to show up. So I've shown up in all the hard times, all the nightmares, all the pants that were too tight, that were the same, that were actually too big. Excuse me. I've been through running and sad choices and sobbing and hysterics and detachment and disassociation, to the point of like getting to the place where like those things don't really happen much anymore. And when they do, it's because they've been activated in really old stuff. But I don't have to hold on to all that. What I get to do now is I can talk about how I got to a different place. It's not always pretty. Like, I wanted to do the nuclear option. I definitely did. Like, I was so angry when all of this started. I wanted to post all the dirty details about everything. And I'll never forget, after I was done, like, walking and ranting about it, my person looked at me and she was like, you know, when we met before we were ever a thing, you said, it's her story, she gets to choose. And I got super mad because I was like, but how am I supposed to... I do it a different way. She's like, that's not who you are. So yeah, I've become the human who looks like I haven't slept in, like, I don't know, a hot minute, because there are nightmares, there are questions, there are conversations in the middle of the night that are hard, and nobody wants to hear it because they think it's just some ploy. And also, the truth is that that's how everyone's always going to believe. Because if it doesn't happen to you, if you don't see that behavior, then of course it seems like I'm making it up. But here's the secret. I worked really hard for that key access. I worked so hard for that access. I have blood, sweat, tears, bruises, frustrations, up all night trying to find a different solution, hard work to earn that all access pass, all the emotions and all the feelings and the peed pants and the, you pick a thing, the baby talk, the whatever. I mean, I live with 4 children. All of those things, I get them all, because I hold them accountable for all the things, no matter what. And because it's hard, and because there are boundaries, and we have to learn what those are, and we have to learn how to have our own. And we get to learn, like, I get to teach them that we don't have to be afraid of every single thing that walks by or drives by. What a gift. Anyway, so I know how lonely it can be at the bottom of the well. I know how lonely it can be, gosh, on, just this side of hell. So I'm hopeful that I can provide enough, presence to encourage, to help people not feel so alone when they're going through it. The system isn't comforting. The system is on the side of the human who makes the most money. And also, you get to be the one. You're the one that they trusted enough to tell. You're the one that gets to choose where they go. You're the one that gets to dig out your own trauma so you don't pass on generational trauma to the others, to your tiny babies. You get to be the one. And that's the thing you can control. That's the thing that no one can take away from you. You can allow them to take that power. You can implode, you can fall apart. And also, yeah, you get to be the one. That framing for me has been everything. It used to be, I get all the consequences, it's unfair, it sucks, it's this, it's that. Man, I wouldn't trade this place. I wouldn't trade it away. It took a lot of work to get here. And also, it's magic. I am the present. I will tell you this quick story. So, like, based on everything. So, there was a Valentine's show. And my person and I were getting out of the car at school. And we see, like, all these people, they're dressed up and they have flowers and balloons and all these things that they're going to give to their kids. And she was like, well, I didn't even think about getting, sorry, somebody was like whistling at my camera. It's kind of funny. Anyway, she was like, we didn't get her anything. We didn't get him anything. We didn't get them anything. Like, what are we going to do? And I looked at her, I was like, we're the present. She's like, what? I was like, we don't need to bring flowers and balloons. We could. It would be appreciated. And also, I was like, we're the present. And she looked at me. So then we walk in to this auditorium, and one grade is coming to watch the other. And so one comes down and they sit down, and one of the tiny humans is searching all around, looking, spots us. And they're like, and then they're like tapping their friends and they're pointing. And then the other set of tiny humans come in, and same thing. They see each other and they acknowledge their existence. They see us and they're waving and they're thrilled. And I looked at her and I was like, do you get it now? And with tears in her eyes, she was like, yeah, I get it. We think as parents, especially when we're in trauma, that we need to buy them something, or we need to, give them things. And my gosh, I come from lack. My family, my house barely holds all the things that they have. But I've learned that with everything they have, they don't care. They need us to show up. They need us to love them and squeeze them and cozy them and remember them and tell them how much we love them, and that there's nothing that they could ever do that would change our minds, and mean it and show up in it and tell them that we're always on their side, because it's true. My goodness, Christmas came. Literally, each one of them asked for one thing from Santa, and I could barely get them to tell me anything from myself. It's not about things. It's about trust and love and support, stability. All those things that we didn't have. They're like Maslow's hierarchy of needs is like base level Maslow is what most of us need. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you soon.